Hi, Jonathan. Thank you for joining us today. It's really important for others to have an overview from a parent perspective.
That's great. No problem. Yeah, I'd like to talk about my son Marcus. He's just finished his GCSEs and give an overview of how we got involved in online tutoring with you.
Fantastic. That's really good. And obviously, from a perspective to start, before we can give parents a different view of why you find education important, could you explain from your perspective, what is education for you?
I think it's clearly the main drive of social mobility for anyone wanting to engage in some sort of professional life or career, but also to have a good background to live, a young person grow up to live their life and have a broad education. So it's probably the most important thing that they go through from when they get to up to about 16, 17, if they carry on with A levels and then university. So it's their grounding for life, really, whatever they decide to do, but they do need a good grounding at each stage.
I always believe that there is that intrinsic motivation from the parent side that leads on to wanting their child to excel. And before you started online tuition, you wanted Marcus to excel.
Yes, I think the difficult thing is looking at what they go through up to GCSEs now. Is usually there's 10 subjects, and quite often there's more than one paper per subject. A young person is likely to do 20 to 25 papers from start to finish. So with such a wide ranging volume of information they need to learn, I think inevitably a young person will have a few gaps and need some support in some subjects. And quite often they see the sciences and maths being, I think, slightly more difficult to possibly understand or follow, and you can get gaps in knowledge. Despite having someone who's a committed student, a good student, doing their homework, doing everything they need to do, you can still, with the volume of information that they have to assimilate, find that they probably need some support in areas. And I think with Marcus, he enjoyed maths, he enjoyed his sciences, but certain aspects you needed some support. And I think the only way you can really do it, unless you are from that background, is to engage with some online tutoring.
I know you chose as well a school that probably in terms of standards is high standards. We're talking about King's School. And what does that mean in terms of the challenges they face compared to a mainstream school is different?
The school in Peterborough is, I think, in terms of league tables, it was the top state school in East Anglia. It always or usually has very good results. And so it's an academic school, but good pastoral care as well. Very popular, and there's usually a waiting list to get into the school. So it's competitive to get into the school. But once in school, they do expect a good level of academic attainment, homework to be done, etc. So yes, there's the need to keep up and to keep going and to try and get as much support as you can along the road of quite a long journey from when they start the GCSEs to when they just finish. It can be quite pressurizing, but equally time goes quite quick before where you are. You're at the end of the process, although the beginning seems a long way off. And if they've got gaps in knowledge, you have to try and think about how you can help support that in an academic environment.
And I think you've done that quite well. And there's two things that you mentioned now that is really important. I think some parents are not aware of the requirements to get into a school like King's. And you had to think that through. How soon do you think the parents should think about the pathway to the education of their children?
There's quite a few state schools that have entrance exams or academic procedures. And for example, in Lincolnshire, there's lots of grammar schools still exist in that area. And there's other state schools that have an academic entrance exam. So if you're looking in year 7, perform well in an entrance exam, you've really, to get into year 7, you need to, I think, probably at least a year before, so year 6 of primary school or slightly earlier, to look at the type of topic come up. And in particular, I think sciences and maths are challenging. So to get into year 7, you really got to start early in year 6, possibly.
I even advise even earlier, 3 years earlier, open opportunities. If we tell the children earlier on the opportunities they have, it opens doors to the network they've got, because that's the other side that we don't think about, but it's a wider network of parents that are politicians or barristers, which is your case, or it is really important to see the long-term effect of being in a grammar school.
They're not necessarily all grammar schools, but they have entrance exams, and to get into that top group, the young person has got to be on top of their game, really, possibly in year 5 as well. But it depends how well they're doing, what the primary school thinks. But yes, it's a challenge, but with support, you can do it.
Definitely. And I think for some parents, they can even get that extra support earlier on, because we're talking about different exam techniques. For example, the non-verbal reasoning and the verbal reasoning is in a different format they would have for their SATs. So again, it's getting that concept earlier on. So when they get to year 6, they feel prepared for the exam. So in terms of finding a tutor, I know before me, Marcus had another tutor one-to-one. And before you decided to have tutor, because I believe he wasn't just for maths or English, he had music classes as well, he had other things. So what did incentivize you to get tutors?
I think you could see with the amount of information that they take on, because of a wide range of subjects, you could see that needed some support. And then with maths, unless you're a parent that's got the time or the ability or the understanding to work it out, how they're being taught or not in school, it's difficult. I think if you can find someone, a tutor to support you. I looked into it and for mathematics, and I searched around. I came across there's quite a few services out there, but I was looking for a kind of more personalised service for Marcus, and got in touch with A2i. I spoke to you, and then we looked at a more personal plan of what might be needed. And so I think because it became a bit more personalised and focused on what that particular child needed, that was what made it more attractive to come to you. And then of course the young person's got to get on with the tutor, and I think Marcus always did. He had a lot of fun, he had a good exchange between you, and otherwise it's a bit dour if you're just working out an equation. You had a bit of fun, a bit of banter, but also then working out, what does this mean, how do you go about this, what do you want to do, and what did you understand, and what did you find difficult about doing this particular maths problem. It was, I think, then the more personalised approach, working out what Marcus needed, you trying to, an A2i, trying to take on those comments, getting such a tutoring plan together, and then going forward, trying it out, see if it worked with him. It did work, and then keep going. So he did. In fact, with the GCSEs coming along, he continued with you before GCSEs and during GCSEs. And again, I think during the GCSE year, the 2 years, but there is a lot of material they get given from all the subjects. And so it's hard to cover everything for the young person when they are receiving so much information. And I don't think it can be a personalised approach, coming back to a topic and saying, did you get this? Did you understand this? And then when you've got that person in a video link with them, they can't really get away from it.
And he was very focused with Marcus as well, because he got to a point where he was bringing more of this homework and issues he had with certain topics that he needed to review. And at the end of it, the questions he asked led on to which part he needed to fill the gaps. And I think that's very important with most students, and Marcus did it brilliantly. He asked questions every time he got stuck. He didn't leave it till the end. And that's one great approach. When students start asking questions, because they want to fill in the gaps they're not getting.
I think it makes it more interesting for them, because it has to be interesting. Otherwise, I think they switch off. And I think you made it interesting, diverse, and he engaged with you. It's not always possible with every tutor to do that. So the engagement is very important, because otherwise they won't stick with it.
And I like the fact you mentioned the gap and the banter we had. We always had a banter, which I see it as the side I think is very, very typical of teenagers as well. You want to have someone that you can relate to and have a bit of a banter. Otherwise they switch. I think that helps.
Yeah, for sure. I think that must be right. And then also it helps them to learn as well. But I think you facilitated that. After a session with Marcus, you scratch his head a bit, think, okay, that was a bit difficult, but I understood that now. And we had a good time. So that's the best you could get from it.
I think so. And with Marcus was, for instance, when we had moments that the question was very uncomfortable and we needed to come back to it, he made it very open that he was ready to learn. And again, is that readiness, having the laptop ready. It's only him at the time that were doing the exams for this year. So for him, it made a difference. Being in a group, they sitting at the June exam in that group alone. He was the only one, because the other one sat in November. He felt, okay, I need to be focused on this lesson. And the fact that he had the right resources as well, from having the camera.
We need some basic, but I think a lot of young people have them now, the camera with the laptop, and ideally pen you can write on the screen, but otherwise you had different methods, and you sent exam papers out. You could print them off if you wanted to. You could edit them online. A whole range of tools you've got, which will suit different young people how they learn.
Definitely. I think it's about that preparation for exams as well. So he had a bit of both. He had the paper based, but he also had the online based papers. So he was able to see from both perspective and look at speed and look at how to get the marks. And he became more confident. And obviously we're getting to the results in August. But in terms of his marks, the previous years, he has improved, even though we had setbacks because of COVID.
Yeah.
I think he's done pretty well.
Yeah, we'll keep our fingers crossed for the final grade, but
yeah,
he's certainly been encouraged by you to do the best he can. We'll have to see with interest what that grade is, but it certainly felt in a better position going into the GCSEs with your support than not, and confidence is important. If they don't feel confident, then it knocks them, and with so many exams with the GCSEs, there's going to probably be a few papers they don't feel confident about. So if you can make them feel more confident about most of it, then that's probably about the best you can do for a parent and a tutor to hopefully get them ready to do that final paper.
Definitely. And I think it is that important side as well, the fact that we're doing online and gaining that confidence to sit the exam. It's only one part of what we did before. So one of the things was scheduling. So how important was Marcus to have a session online, because we are in different parts of the country?
That was, I think we had some flexibility depending on when exams got a bit closer, when trying to fit in. I think you had some flexibility as to the scheduled times, but otherwise we generally tried to stick to a pattern of some weekends and or during the week. It fitted in. I think we generally had a regular slot building up to the GCSEs after school, basically during the week, and then occasionally on a weekend, and then when the actual exams were coming, depending on where they were in the timetable, some extra support then. That was appreciated to a certain extent. We can't be completely flexible, as no one would be their schedule, but there was a schedule.
Yeah, but we had the flexibility. For example, during the holidays, which usually we don't deliver during the holidays, we just do term time mostly. He was abroad, and we were able to support him still.
Yes, he got in touch from Bulgaria, I think.
Bulgaria, yes.
So that's the beauty of being online, isn't it? You can, provided you've got a good internet connection, can join in from wherever you may be. So if a youngster's away on holiday, some can still continue, and you were able to engage in that as well. So that was very good with that sort of element of flexibility as well during the holidays.
Definitely. And for Marcus, obviously, he has hobbies, and for him, the hobbies became something very important, especially pre-pandemic. So what kind of hobbies does Marco take, and how do you think that impact on his mental health, as well as obviously concentration levels during the session? I can say from my perspective, he improved.
Looking at it, he started to become a bit more active. So he was going to his local gym, doing a bit of keep fit, some weightlifting, modest weightlifting. So he became a bit fitter, and I think he felt a bit better with that when coming to learn whatever learning it would be, including tutoring. And he also played football on the weekend, so that broke up the weekends a bit. He generally reasonably sporty, and I think it breaks the cycle of the pressure of studying. Yes. If the young person has got an activity, if they don't, it probably looks like everything runs in without a break from studying. So it's certainly a good thing to have whatever that person may be interested in to keep it going during it, because it becomes stale, I think, and they then probably resent keeping going all the time without a break. Still benefits in a physical sense, but also in a mental sense as well.
I saw that, and that's why I brought that question up, because I've seen most of my students have some sort of activities that they do either over the weekend or after school before they see it. And the fact that being active, they're working much faster, they're more alert during the sessions, even if they had a tenuous workout. And I think that is a positive. Even if it's music, anything that is hobby related, they're doing something they enjoy, it does support that, and it's a break definitely from everything else. And then when they join us during the online sessions, it makes it much easier. And I saw that in Marcus. That's why I brought that up, definitely. And he's not the only one that has that impact. So having that schedule around the family, being able to do extra activities, and then for some of that stamina they have from exercises onto a live session, it does support for teaching and learning. Thank you for being supportive of Marcus' activities as well, because some parents can't. And I know you have a busy life, and I don't know how you can fit everything around schedule
as well.
Which is very important. And I believe that parents need to be that involved. The commitment can't be just from the child, and you were very involved.
So hopefully a parent can find some time, because most people seem busier now than ever, the parents. But if you can find a bit of time, certainly. I enjoyed that kind of activity as well, and still do. But you can see that the child needs a distraction from the studying as well to help motivate them. So if not everyone can, I managed to find a little bit of time to do extra things like that, but I certainly encourage parents to do so if they can.
And what you did, which sometimes parents don't realize, you give him the extra skill, which is organizational skills, where they take that for life. And they brought that into our online sessions. And if not, it's something that we always emphasize, that it's important for them to be organized. They have their schedule. They know when to take the session. And Marcus was really good with that. He knew where the sessions were going to take place. Even though he had a busy schedule, he was able to organize himself. And I know times with the different exams, especially towards the end, he had everything organized. So the next exam is this one, so I'll prioritize this exam. So I'll do tutoring on maths today, and then tomorrow I'll focus on science, and so on. So it was very organized. I could hear it, that the skills were embedded over time. And maybe a bit of two supported him to use those skills as well, because he already had a busy schedule before starting to. And I think those are valuable skills that we don't realize. It's bringing the whole round child. And without the support of the parents, we wouldn't be able to do it. And you've done that brilliantly. So we appreciate it.
We'll see. He sees it that way as well. And it's a sort of structure, isn't it? You've got to try and organize your time around everything and fit it all in. And it can be done, but it needs cooperation, I think, with ideally the tutor, the child, and the parent. And hopefully they're all going along together at the same pace. It can be done, but it needs to be thought about how you do it.
Definitely. And you just brought another thing that we talk about a lot, is that triangulation. As a parent, you always ask the right questions at school to make sure that Marcus had some areas for improvement that he could bring for the tutoring. And you've done that brilliantly, just to make sure that he has all that information for our online sessions. So the school did a brilliant job by breaking down where you needed support as well. And that triangulation between tutor, parent, and student was done, but there was a background. So again, the school was able to give enough information to give him the support. And I think we take it for granted, but that communication with parents is very important. And with you, Jonathan, was easy, because every time we had something to bring up, either via email or a phone call, we were able to do it to support Marcus in the best way. And I think that's cool. So it's key to remember that. And bringing that expectations of communication as well. I think Marcus was present in most of it. So he's aware that his interest was at heart from everybody. So working with schools, working with A2i Academy and myself, and also making sure that you as a parent was always in the loop and bringing the information across that was required. You bringing those skills to Marcus for long term. When he has his own family, he'll probably think the same way.
Let's hope so, but it goes back to my original comments about having a good grounding in education, but inevitably I think majority of students will need some extra support, because there's a lot to know, particularly when you go through the GC 2 years and then face a large number of exams. It's an exceptional child that can go through it without any extra support. There's so much to know and do and consolidate as well. So I think it's all been a great experience.
That's it. And where do you see Mark once he completes his A-levels? I know we're thinking too much ahead of the game, but where do you see him?
He's got varied interests. He's sort of interested he's sort of looking at business studies. He enjoys arts as well, so history, that kind of thing. I think because he's only just getting into the end of the GCSEs now, he's still thinking about long-term solution, which way he wants to go. But he's some sort of business style, possibly law, something that along those lines, I think. But we'll have to see. He will no doubt know. He's worked that out but again, support.
I can't wait because it does have this entrepreneurial mindset as well when we had our conversations. So a bit of combination between law and business, it sounds great, which is good to hear from a young one that he has a few ideas.
But if you've got a good grounding in a range of subjects, then you've got choices. And you can look the young person what they become more interested in, I think. But you need to have that good grounding in education to be able to do it.
Yeah, definitely. I think he does have a good grounding, especially with all your support. You and Daniela has done a brilliant job as well to raise him. And he does have this inclination towards business, law. His writing skills amazing as well, and speaking skills. Communication skills are astonishing, I think, for a young person. He'll do well. We're waiting for the results, obviously, like patiently till August. But it's good to see that he's done really well. And throughout the exams, the initial part was stressful for every single student, thinking about the 10 subjects they had to go through. But I think he saw it through after the first exam, how to do it as they come and be ready for each of them. And it was organized, it was keen.
Once you start that period, certainly, they got to just get on with it. It's quite difficult from what I can see. But in the end, you will come out the other end. But preparation is the key thing. And I think if a youngster needs some extra tutoring, get in early rather than leave it. If you leave it to the last minute towards the exams, there's not really enough time to cover what the person needs. It needs to be built up properly and planned, I think.
Absolutely.
And then that's the best way to support it. Sort of emergency is not probably good for the student or indeed the tutor, because then it's too much. You don't know quite where to come from, unless there's a very specific topic that needs to be explained. Otherwise, if it's more general understanding and support, it's a longer term process than parachuting in on the eve of the exams is not.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not attractive.
No. And it probably brings more anxiety and stress too. And I had a few cases of students that wanted to do just one week, 3 weeks. And I think that's a bit pushing the boundaries of their anxiety. And if we want them to excel, we need to start earlier on. Most of our students started for the GCSE, started year 7. And the example of Marcus, they started very earlier on as well. It's a minimum of 3 years to get them to that stage where they feel confident to sit the exam. And sometimes that extra push that they feel sometimes schools can't deliver all the topics. They came to us, a great example we had recently, grade 9 that sat the exam earlier, and the expectation from the school was not matching her capabilities. And we need to look into that perspective, is how can we best support earlier on and probably identify those. With Marcus, he started earlier on and he started realizing, I can do this. And he built his confidence massively. Since I met him before, he didn't like maths at all.
If you can make it a bit more fun, that's good, which you did. I think you've made it personalised, which also produces a spark for the young person in terms of learning and engagement.
Definitely. So I always ask this question because it's important to know. Obviously, it's not just for me, it's for any parents that want to find tutoring services elsewhere. If it's with us, all the great. But this question first gives other parents an idea where to start if they haven't engaged yet with tutoring or they are considering it. What are the 3 things that you advise a parent before they hire someone?
I think when you come to look at that, because there are obviously a lot of tutoring services out there, but I think you should look for whether it's more personalised to the student, because they are all different. They've got all different needs and understandings, and what might be important to one student might not be the same for the other. So whether you can establish with the tutorial, whoever's going to provide that, sort of a more focused on the needs of that child. So whether you have some sort of initial assessment with the tutor or a certainly discussion between parent, tutor and the child. So I think it's a kind of whether it can be tailored to the child, so personalised. I think feedback is good from the tutor if we can get a bit of feedback, and then maybe have a discussion with after a while or another day with the child, say, how did you get on? That looks like that's something you could look at. So a bit of feedback, and that probably flexibility as well. If you've got to change the schedule, not all the time, but sometimes inevitably you have to have some changes, whether you can have a little bit of flexibility when needed. I think those are probably the main bits. And obviously the child has got to engage with the tutor, and certainly Marcus did with you, and continuity probably as well, because it's quite, you don't really want lots of different tutors, because if you stick with continuity, then the tutor and the child knows where they've been. If it becomes disruptive with tutor swapping, then I think that can be an issue as well. So both tutor and child getting a bit lost. But if you've got continuity, which we did have, I think that's helpful as well.
Oh, that's perfect. And
I know there might be more than 3 points, but that's what I could say.
It's more than 3, definitely. That's more than 3. And I like those points, especially the one that you mentioned, continuity. Sometimes we take it for granted. And with A2i, our tutors have that continuity. If we start at year 7, we tend to go with them until A levels. And I think we take those things for granted. And we know with the tutoring services nowadays, because it's very flexible, sometimes the tutor can't carry on because they have responsibilities during daytime, or they feel like tutoring is not for them, and they end up abandoning it. But with us, we do care, and we are personalized learning, and we want to stick for as long as we can, for 2, 3 years, 4 years. And that's the main thing. We're trying to support them from all the stages of primary to secondary school and beyond, really, because we're looking at digital skills as well, employability skills, which we talk about during our sessions, I think, and discussions with the parents, you included. What happens is we have to discuss the future effects of young ones. So having that continuity will support that. And we can have a mentoring role as well in guiding them.
I'm glad we managed to find you in the beginning. So thank you very much.